Hello, everyone. You are listening to Cognitive Type Talk Show or whatever. I'll name this something different eventually. The Cognitive Type Talk Show with Meghan LeVota. I'm going to wait for some people to come on a bit, but hello. If you are watching the replay, thanks for being here. You see, I really enjoy going live, but my brain does not work in random spurts. My brain works in series of events. So that's why on Wednesday nights, I'm going to try and do it every week. Maybe it'll be more like every other. I am going to go live, talk about typology, talk about cognitive functions. My NI is already seeing a dream of this being different segments and all the stuff I could do with it. But yeah, if you have any questions about cognitive functions or personality type, feel free to drop them in the chat. You might notice from the title, I have ENFJs suck on the title. So that is one thing that I'm going to discuss. Just a little bit of things I've been realizing, especially as an ENFJ myself. Some things that are annoying about ENFJs. I'm going to call out some specific hypocrisies that ENFJs can fall into. So there's that. And I'm also going to be reading some Reddit threads of the Reddit, what's it called? Subreddit, Am I the Asshole? I'm going to be reading some of these. I'm going to be analyzing who was right, who was wrong, / were they both right, / were cognitive functions perhaps responsible for these arguments that people get into? Perhaps that might be. Also, so I'm going to talk a little bit about ENFJs and probably just whatever comes to mind. Then I will take time for some questions, and then pretty much I just want this to be a casual little hangout. I hope that you guys have been doing well. I'll just start by saying that I had the idea of like, oh, maybe I should look at some news and potentially talk about cognitive functions in the news. But let's be real. If this was going to be a fun, casual, good time of us hanging out together, do we really want to be looking at the news? It's a very depressing time right now. I have not fully felt myself lately, but not even in a bad way necessarily. I'm like finding myself rise to the challenge or rise to the occasion in so many ways in my life where I'm like surprising myself. Hopefully you guys are experiencing that too, because not to sound like a cliche, but we are in unprecedented times. For those of you who like to plan and think about the future, you don't know what that future is necessarily going to look like. We never fully know, but our whole idea about what that looks like is changing, especially if you're a young person who has your whole life ahead of you, or so you hope, or so you wish. There's a lot of emotions going on. And even someone like me who is capable of handling a lot of intense emotions and like even will listen to my friends for fun and even for a job, I will willingly do emotional labor on people because that's how much I enjoy it. Even for someone like me, side note, I offer coaching and consulting, which is linked below if you are interested. But yeah, even for someone like me who literally like is dramatic as fuck and also enjoys dealing with emotion, it is a lot. I am tired constantly because I cannot unplug from what is going on. And I am constantly having to like reorient my perspective back in where I'm headed, because I do believe that a lot of suffering can be reduced by our mindset. That does not mean that mindset is going to change everything, but I do, just for my own sanity, spend a lot of time trying to make sure that I'm approaching situations in the best way possible and that I'm thinking about things in the best way possible so that I'm not causing unnecessary pain. And a lot of this comes from just a lot of my past being over emotional and over attached to certain things, that it really does help to make sure that I'm constantly like reorienting my perspective. But anyway, that's been a lot. That's been a lot to deal with. And I recently moved, and my whole schedule has gotten out of whack, where I used to be making videos like just whenever I felt like it. It seems like my life used to be that I was doing a bunch of like boring shit that I didn't want to do. And I would be distracted by typology constantly while I was doing like boring stuff. And even at my old job, it was like a very relaxed job. And people were able to like take breaks, and I never really took a lunch break. And so I used to just go out and either on my lunch break or just take a break and do a quick video. And I don't really have, like, my schedule does not really have the same luxury as I used to. And I'm realizing, like, which this is going to bleed into the ENFJ suck discussion. I'm realizing that, like, for me, I can't just rely on my passion to fully get me by. I have to also plan and prioritize for the things that I want to get done. Because if I don't establish that system, if something changes in the sensory world and that system changes, and what if I don't have the same emotional energy that I used to, how am I going to get it done? And, you know, this is something that I've been learning from a lot of TJs from. I've been observing how like ENTJ and INTJs do things in particular, but also STJs. TE is a lot about managing like time and energy and resources and using that in order to figure out how to go from point A to point B. Where introverted thinking a lot of times is just like, well, what's the best way? What is the ideal thing what is the best way of thinking about it and like the absolute correct thing? And sometimes if you spend too much time refining what is the best way, then time passes by and you don't go from point A to point B because you're still refining and you're still stuck on point A. And that's the thing, is that TE, as a more objective function, it's more focused, or it's aware of the factor of time a lot more. I've noticed, is because if time is energy in a way, and if TE is about managing energy and resources, like time is also one of our resources, and labor that we put into time is kind of also a resource. And time passes me by a lot because I struggle to like put my money where my mouth is and actually do the ST side of things to get my actual life on track to match what I want to do. So if you are just now tuning in, feel free to ask any questions you have about cognitive functions, because I'm going to schedule time for any sort of topics you guys want to talk about. I want to make this interactive. So I'm going to just sort of go into some of my recent realizations about ENFJs. And I feel like this could be helpful for anyone, either wanting to learn about functions or like, these are all just sort of patterns and emotional lessons that I've realized are important for ENFJs, but anybody could learn from them. Number one, what I've been realizing is that literally other people cannot, like, other people's opinions of you literally cannot affect your happiness. And what I mean by this, that I think an ENFJ would struggle with, which I immediately struggle with, is like, well, what about all the times that I've worried about what people think about me that has caused me pain and made me unhappy? But what I would tell the ENFJ in that situation is that it was actually you that did the worrying that made yourself unhappy. The other person who either didn't like you or disagreed with you didn't make you unhappy. All they did was exist, and all they did was have a disagreement with you or have a personal preference that where they just didn't like you that much. And sometimes it's harmless. Obviously, people can directly hurt and impact other people, but their perception of you and what they think about you, it might influence their actions towards you, but their perceptions and their thoughts about you alone literally cannot influence your happiness, because what I'm realizing is, like, if I really enjoy doing one thing, it really lights you up, and the other person doesn't like that about you, if I were to not do it, then I would not be doing the thing that I wanted to do, and I would be removing what I love from myself. And also, if I were to do what I love and other people did not like that, at the end of the day, I would be able to sleep at night knowing that I did what I love. And that, it might sound really basic if you are like an FINTE user, but this is a very mind-blowing thing for me and potentially other NFJs, because people tell you, oh, you have to fill your own cup. Oh, you have to love yourself first. Well, that's not always true, because the thing is that nobody, like, we're all a little bit broken and nobody's perfect. And we can't, like, wait to be fully perfect to accept love, or else nobody's ever going to be loved. And also, I've realized, since I've been in a committed relationship for 2 years now, I've realized that there are things that I've healed that would not have been possible if were not for this relationship. I know that relationships heal. I know that two broken people can become less broken through love. I know that. So the idea of that, oh, you have to love yourself first in order to love anyone will ever love you, it's always sort of like, okay, yes, I get it. I get that self-love is important. However, we live in a society, and my emotions are intimately connected with everybody else's emotions. And so obviously a big part of this is boundaries. Again, everybody always talks about boundaries. What does that actually mean? I still am figuring that out. But what an example that I thought of is, if you want to think about, like, gay marriage or any sort of LGBT relationship, which I myself am bisexual and in a committed relationship with a woman. This is a perfect example of understanding this concept, is that I am in love with my girlfriend. If somebody doesn't like that about me, and they are, like, not even in my life whatsoever, they just leave a comment, they can't take my girlfriend away from me. They can't take my love away from me. They can't take a thing out. They cannot take a thing away from me, except for my energy, my mental energy. And that's the thing that ENFJs, our inferior introverted thinking, lets people hijack our mental energy. That's the problem. And we need to realize that that person cannot take what we love away from us. We can choose to not, be an entrepreneur or be openly gay or talk about alien shit publicly. Nobody can take away your joy. And I always understood this as like a concept, as like a nice little quote to think about, but I didn't understand before it's like just how true it is, because I don't know. I feel like you guys might get it, but it really, that is a thing that I feel like a lot of ENFJs get in theory, but they really don't get it. They don't act like they get it. Their behavior doesn't show that they get it. They still act as though somebody else has control over how you choose to live your life, where that's kind of the key point, is that you control how you live your life. And I feel like for ENFJs, we have to realize that joy can come from within. Joy is not just basking in the glow of a connection. Joy is a lot deeper than that, and you can deny yourself joy. If you enjoy reading a book in the morning and waking up early and feeling the breeze and hearing the birds, you can deny yourself that joy by choosing to feel sorry for yourself and sleep in, and choosing to worry about what your boss thinks about you. And I'm telling you, that has been my problem, is that I don't do the things that bring me joy because my FE gets in the way, because that takes a lot of fucking energy to worry. It takes a lot of energy and you're giving other people power. And NJs, this is a whole other thing. NJs accidentally give away their power constantly because we have SE and we are at least subconsciously aware of the power dynamic. But if we're just so focused on R and I that we aren't focused enough on the power. I mean, actually, I'd argue that NPs probably give away their power as well, like anyone with low SE. But for me, it's I have the agency to figure out how I live my life. And if I don't choose to put in the force or figure out a way to execute on the results of the things that will bring me joy, then there's only so far I can go. And for so much of my life, I did not even believe that so many of these things were possible, as far as actual fulfillment from within, not just a fun talk with a friend, not just enjoying a show, not just, for so long, my main joy came from talking. And I love talking. I love hearing about people. But really, so much of it is camaraderie about the fact that the world sucks. And about the fact that I think, I for a while, honestly, ever since college, I am the sort of person that I do want to surround myself with friends that have a positive mindset and, are doing their best, whatever. I want to surround myself by inspiring people, but at the same time, to some extent, I think it's a problem for more unbalanced FE to surround yourself with people who also feel misery, and to get a thrill off of the vibe of the fact that you guys at least understand each other, or at least we have each other in this cruel world. That's such a thing where it's and the thing is, I still did think that, or I still do think that the main reason for life, or the best part of life, is the people in it. But I'm starting to realize too that if I give myself my favorite drink, or if I allow my body to feel what it feels like to stretch and do yoga, if I allow my body to feel what it feels like to have enough sleep and eat my favorite food, and if I give myself free time, if I give myself fun, If I give myself the things that I crave and I make an effort and actually put the hard work in to get it, then that actually is the more direct pathway to joy versus like trying to get everyone to make sure that they like you. And no ENFJ, I think, intentionally realizes how how illogical that is. But I think that the hidden TI strategy behind ENFJs that are that way, that they put all of their energy into making people like them and making sure that they're on a good page with people rather than toward doing things to better your life. I think that the strategy there is that life is fine so long, and they're thinking like life is fine, but it's not fine whenever other people are mean and whenever other people are against each other. Life would just be okay if everybody was cool with each other. So if I can make sure, and if I could be on the defense to make sure that I don't have anyone coming at me, then that will protect me, right? That's kind of what the unhealthy ENFJ mindset is. It is thinking that if you go on the defense and you make sure that there's nobody coming on your turf to dislike you, then it almost like protects your NI to like be creative and do whatever you want. But in order to even do whatever, it's like you have to also like do whatever you want in spite of. And you can't be on the defense, because what I think that we don't realize is that takes double the energy, and it's also a way harder strategy. And it's actually impossible to get everybody to like you, but there are definitely ENFJs that have succeeded in being extremely well liked. And a lot of the times what they do is they actually deny themselves the things that make them feel like them. And it's kind of a thing in the type community where people talk about ENFJs and INFJs as being like pretty different from one another. Whenever they're only like the one letter off, they're pretty much like sister types. And it's because a lot of times ENFJs hide their weirdness from others because they're taking this defensive approach. And then whenever they're alone at night, they feel like the weirdest person on earth. And they feel like they have not created the SE place where they can be weird and for that to be okay. Because they're instead trying to ward off everybody else from going into their space and telling them that it is not okay for them to be weird, as opposed to what the strategy that I'm realizing works a lot better is like actually doing the SE things that actually make you happy, which gives you more energy at the end of the day. And when you have more energy, it's easier to not care, and like it's easier to manage your energy and like stop giving energy to the things that aren't directly giving you what you want. And it's crazy. Like I was talking earlier about how the pandemic has been just very overwhelming. But what's crazy is that like I have not had any energy to reach out to friends in the way that I used to. And it's because I've been actually giving myself the things that I've wanted my entire life. And whenever I am actively working on myself, I realize that the more I do that, the more I invest energy into that, the less energy I have to ask people, hey, what's up? Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Like I used to do all the time. And so now it's like, whenever I am putting energy into me, I have less to put out there. And it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. Because other people that have a harder time reaching out, it's because they're putting their energy into other things. Obviously, they're putting it into some other bucket. And they might be forgetting this bucket out here where it is important to feel like you have, like you're on a good page with everyone or with people you care about. But I have been really just investing in like about 3 people. And I've never been this way before. Like I've always been like wanting to be best friends with everyone. So, okay, here's actually another thing I realized is that people suck up close. That's one thing I realized. People suck up close. So why? Oh my God. So why do I want to be everybody's best friend? Why do ENFJs want to be everybody's BFF? Whenever not everybody is going to be compatible with you to that level. You need to make sure that everybody you can love properly from the level where they're at. If you bring everybody too close, then that is what brings resentment, and that's what brings too much judgment, and that's what severs the relationship. And if people want to pull away from you, it doesn't mean that you're bad or that you are wrong. It could just mean that they are putting their energy into something else and they don't have that energy for you. Or it could mean they've placed you in this specific category or in this specific position to you, and they don't want to get so close to the point where you are going to grow resentment and you are going to grow judgment. So another reason why ENFJs suck, we don't own our expertise. This has something to do with inferior introverted thinking. So also for those of you guys who are just tuning in, if you have a question about cognitive functions, please let me know and I will get to them. So, okay, here's a really, really annoying thing that ENFJs can do. We don't own our expertise. So we take forever to come to these inferior introverted thinking conclusions. And then we overanalyze what we think is true for years. One way of explaining this too is I feel like I share ideas that I have thought about for years. It takes me several weeks or years, whatever, depending on how afraid I am to share it, before it comes out of my mouth. There's such a long ruminating process, at least when it comes to logic. So if you're just tuned in, I'm talking a little bit about what I've realized about ENFJs and how we can suck, and some advice for ENFJs and also just anyone curious. But okay. Okay, so we will spend way more time guessing and checking to see if what we think is true, because we're so afraid of the FE backlash of what would happen if we were to say something that was either offensive or not true. And so you might think that inferior TI means that we think less. But think about INTPs and ISTPs. Think about how much they overanalyze how people work, and also how do they insert themselves into these crazy situations that they don't really understand with people. They overly TI their FE, and I don't think you'd meet an INTP or ISTP who has never experienced extremely overanalyzing a social situation. So ENFJs do this with our TI. We overly FE the TI, where we overly think about the negative consequences that a falsehood might bring. We don't want to bring anything that is going to cause harm. So we don't want to just go with our gut, and we don't want to just say something that we haven't thought about. But we are insecure about our thoughts. And so as opposed to having the confidence to be oh, actually, I researched this, and this is the fact here. Let me help you with this. An ENFJ is more likely to judge the person and be frustrated. And be frustrated by the fact that they don't know. Or be frustrated by, oh my God, I feel like I'm surrounded by idiots. And the thing is that this TI is unconscious. And so a lot of ENFJs come off pretentious and holier than thou and judgy. And it is because this resentment that's building and this judgment that's building that they won't acknowledge because they want to be nice. And if they would just trust themselves, if they would just be oh, it seems like I know something here that the other person doesn't know. And if you can actually use that information, trust your knowledge, and tell the person in a kind way, and if you aren't so uncomfortable by putting yourself in a position of superiority, which a lot of times we are uncomfortable with that, yet we also gravitate toward it, then you're actually probably going to help them a lot more than you would be if you like didn't explain yourself and just expected them to get it. So that's another really annoying thing. Last annoying thing, no, actually two more annoying things about ENFJs is that we care so much about understanding people, but we do all the right things to make sure that people feel understood. And we do have an uncanny ability to understand people in general. But we rarely, whenever there is a social situation that goes wrong, we take the perspective of, well, I did everything I can do. I can't think about how I could have done something better in that situation. If only they would tell me where they're coming from, and if only they would communicate with me, then it would be solved. But what I would tell you, ENFJ, is that if you just take 5 minutes to think through what could they be thinking, make a list, come up with a hypothesis of what they might be thinking, and just think about it for a second. That's the inferior TI. I've realized how little we do this because I've gotten a couple confusing moments with ENFJs, and it feels like we're looking in a mirror because I know I've been guilty of this, so I can't even really hold it against them. But I'm just like, you think that you're understanding me right now, but you're not. And if you would just think for 5 seconds about how this could be potentially perceived differently, you would get me. But instead, you're choosing not to because you're so afraid of being wrong. And that is the position in which I have been in before. And it has to do with us not taking the damn time to just think through what is a hypothesis. Honestly, like use TI and NE. We have TI as our inferior and NE as like our demonstrative shadow function. Come up with 5 potential reasons why the person might be extremely pissed off at you, and I guarantee you would find one. And if you think that you should be doing something differently, then do that. But you have to just think about your character and trust that if the person had the energy to talk to you, then they would. So, yeah. And last thing I'll say is that for ENFJs, I'm realizing a lot about how our lower down SE can come into play, is that we can get excited about the idea in the idea phase, and then that excitement fizzles out whenever we run into difficulties making it a reality, because we struggle in the sensory world and figuring out how to do the practical thing in order to make it happen. And we know that what we're imagining is possible. We just struggle with the strategies of how to execute. And really, we need to ask for help and let go of our pride and realize that you're not dumb for not knowing everything, and get rid of sort of that inferior TI vulnerability and ask for help. Because if we get overly excited about our idea and we don't figure out how to make it happen, then we're going to fizzle out, and we're going to be quick to want to fail easily. Yeah, so actually, Flow State says, it's been like several hours since I messaged you a question, FE fumble. I was actually just talking about this, Taylor. I was just talking about how I'm realizing that, well, I was saying earlier that like, I'm realizing that the more energy I'm trying to put into like more FI of like, I'm going to do this thing that's going to directly make me happy and bring me joy, rather than trying to bask in the good vibes of others and have that bring me joy. I'm realizing that the more I do that, then the less energy I have to respond to people. And then I feel it's like this weird tug of war thing, because it's like, I know that if I don't give myself a brain break at the end of the day or something, then I'm always going to feel like shit. And it's one of these things where my NI eventually has to see the pattern. So kind of going back to what I was saying about how like ENFJs have these grand ideas and then they fizzle out of excitement whenever they try an SE once. And then they're like, oh no, I can't do it. And then we're like, oh my gosh, I feel so stupid. And our TI is like, oh my goodness, like I'm so dumb. And like we're insecure. And it's like, no, you just need to think about it a little bit longer. And you need to prioritize the fact that the sensory world is going to take effort and it is hard work. And I'm realizing a lot lately about how life kind of is hard work. And I think that a problem for ENFJs is that we take it personally when life is hard work. And especially for our type, the hard work of the sensing is actually going to be hard for you, like even harder for you. And you can't just expect your idea to give you all of the momentum. So anyway, that's my rants that I have about ENFJs. Let me see if I have any questions from you guys, and then I'm going to read some Am I the Assholes from Reddit and tell you who I think is an asshole. So, hello, Samuel. Samuel asked me the question, as a feeling Dom, are the differences between TI and TE feel less clear to you than those between the pairs of intuition and sensation? I actually would say no. I feel like TE and TI are very clear to me, more so than like SE and SI. And I attribute that to the fact that SI is my blind spot, and so it's not something I think about. Whereas TI, even though it is a weaker function than my SE, it is something that causes me a lot of pain. And it is something that feels directly related to a lot of what my FE is dealing with. So that's kind of my answer with that. But I also would imagine that other people with different life experiences and whatnot might have a different answer depending on like their experiences and like their, I guess, growth journey. Well, Oswaldo says that you are the FE guidance for the INTPs that care to work on it. I've heard that before, and I really wish that INTPs would ask me more questions about that, or just any TP in general. I would love it if like I became like if TPs just like asked me their FE questions more often, because that's fun for me. Yeah, Flow State says your type needs to sort of schedule in unwind time. That's very true. And I don't think that we realize it until, I don't even know. I feel like I have been realizing it again and again and again. And the realization keeps growing stronger. But that doesn't mean that I have figured out a solution for making sure that I do it. Yeah, so Oswaldo says that depending on the level of balance ENFJ, I think I've seen really unbalanced ones be very gossipy and run away from talking deeply. I feel like an ENFJ has to feel comfortable before they talk deep with you, but it's what they crave more than anything. So if you ever see an ENFJ being like really, really pushy or like trying to aggressively befriend you, it's probably because they want their like mask to wear off as quickly as possible. I'm kind of giving you guys the real talk here because I don't think most ENFJs would want to talk about themselves in this way, because it's not something that we do consciously. We're not trying to trick you. We're not trying to be fake, but we feel as though our sense of joy and peace depends on making sure that people don't hate us Because if we were to cause conflict or drama with someone, then that would be a threat to our sense of peace in the world, because we feel so plugged in to everybody else that we don't really know how to unplug from all of the emotions that are going on. And another one of the reasons why ENFJs can be very gossipy is if we do not trust our own TI opinion about something, or even if we do, if we don't know our TI opinion, we might want to talk it through with someone to try and figure out and refine together what our opinion might be. And especially if it's about a drama situation or a person, we want to know where we stand. We want to know if we should cut a relationship off or not, because we don't want to have any sort of pain with a person. And I do think that gossip can be healthy. There are some healthy situations in which you really just want to make sure that you are not judging a situation incorrectly, and you aren't like talking about anything that you wouldn't say to the person's face. Or like maybe you're just getting something off your chest to a friend about a situation that bothered you. So how loyal are ENFJs? I feel like we're probably one of the most loyal types, although I think that loyalty probably is more of a character trait than anything else. But I do think that ENFJs can be loyal to a fault because we fear like burning a bridge. I never want to burn a bridge with anyone. That's like a terrible thing for me. And like, I feel like I have been rejected and abandoned more so than I have had to be the one to do that. It's not as true anymore, mostly just because I'm busier, which again is connected to what I was saying before, is that whenever I start intentionally doing things to invest in things that would actually change my own life, rather than only focusing on talking to people for fun, for my sense of fun, it's like that takes a lot of energy. Like, I don't know. It's just, you'd be surprised how much SE and TI takes a lot of damn energy. So, and then Tara asks, are ENFJs really chameleon-like in social situations? I would say yes, but it's not the sense that I can blend into any situation, but I do figure out how to make my natural self jive with any situation. So like if I feel like I really belong, then I'm going to show more of myself. And if I feel like I don't belong, then I'm going to show less of myself. And it's almost like the percentage of myself that fits the situation is the percentage that's going to be shown. And so I'm going to be a loud, bold personality if I feel really comfortable. And if I don't, I'm going to be very reserved and like in the corner and like want to go home. I definitely can come off reserved or even stuck up. And I don't mean to come off stuck up, but that's only when like if I am not interested in what's happening. I don't know how to fake it. And so that's kind of the chameleon thing that I don't fully relate to. I would never I don't like to cause a scene, but like, for example, I had a friend that really liked doing trivia, and I hate trivia. And there were a couple times I went to do trivia with her just because I didn't want her to think whenever she asked me to go do trivia, I didn't want her to think that I didn't like her or that I didn't want to invest in a friendship. And I like found myself just staring at the wall most of the time. And like I never got any question right. And I was told that that's because I didn't try, but I knew that even if I would have tried, like I didn't know any of the answers. So, because I don't like consume like pop culture enough. But yeah. So I am going to, let's see how this works. Well, You know what? I'm not going to be able to share my screen because I need to change my settings and it would turn this off. So that's frustrating. I'm going to read this to you. So I'm sorry for the people who are visual people. But I'm going to now move on to reading these Reddit threads and then discussing these with you guys. And if you're tuning in now and you have a question about cognitive functions, let me know. I'm probably going to read like 2 of these this time. And then maybe, just maybe, I will increase these segments to, I don't know. Why do I always want to have schedules? Like, that's one thing that is like very J of me, even though it sounds like, if you're listening to me, it might sound like I'm talking all over the place. An INTJ told me today that that my NE was on fire and that like he couldn't keep up with what I was talking about. And I don't know. Like I do feel like I can, and like in socionics and like also in BB's system, my NE is pretty like strong despite being the shadow. And so part of me really does like just rambling and like seeing where it takes me. But in my mind, I always have a path. And I wish I could be one of those. I like truly am jealous of a lot of like NP streamers or like live streamers that just go on and they don't even know what they're going to say and they just hang out. And for whatever reason, I like cannot use Discord. People keep tagging me on like Discord threads and they're like, oh, Megan's in this server, but she doesn't ever talk. And like, I'm on like multiple now. And like, I don't even know how to enter any chat room conversation because it's so overwhelming to me, because I'm just like, I don't know where the flow of conversation is going. Everybody's saying 5 things at once. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to dominate the conversation. Or like my J-ness really shows up whenever I want to know, like, what's the purpose of this conversation? And like, I keep trying to turn my live stream into like something that has purpose, but fuck my purpose. Okay. Cause I'm always thinking about that. And yeah. So anyway, so I'm about to read this Reddit thread that if my screen let me, I would be showing you. But alas, it's not. So I'm just going to read this. Am I the asshole for being brutally honest about my financial stability? So I'm 26 and I have no student debt. I own a condo outright. Oh wait, I guess I can just add this in the chat in case anyone wanted to read. And I own a condo outright. My coworkers in office are very anti-young people and constantly rag on those millennials and their financial irresponsibility. I'm one of the 4 people under 30 in the office, and my coworkers are usually shocked by my age. They know I have no college debt because I mentioned it once, and I mentioned in passing that I had bought a condo. On the last happy hour Zoom meeting, they started in on their talk. I tried to gently defend my generation, only to have them say that I shouldn't because, unlike them, I'm actually responsible. And I proved that a millennial actually could do it if they really tried. Here's the thing. My aunt died when I was 8, and she basically left enough money and time for my parents to invest for a college fund. I have a condo because my grandmother died this year. I was on the lease and I had enough to pay off the $20,000 left on the mortgage. Basically put, my success is, to be blunt, people dying at a convenient time. I was sick of them, so I told them that my advantages were literally inheritance and that I'm not better than any of my cohorts, just luckier. They were all shocked that I would be so blunt, and now people are irritated. Am I the asshole? I do not think that this person is an asshole at all. What do you guys think? I think that this person probably uses at least decently strong extroverted sensing, if I were to just go off of a gut, I would wonder if this person was an ESTP. Only because I feel like, just being honest here, I feel like a TE user, and I don't know if this is just because of my experience with my ESTJ and ENTJ uncles and people I know in my life. I feel like a TE user would be a little bit more likely to just let them think that you're really successful and that you are better than the other millennials. I feel like they would have more of the FI feeling of well, that's not fully true, but also I don't want them to think that I'm young and incapable, and so whatever, they're not my friends, they're just my business partners or whatever, and as long as they view me as capable, then that's a good thing for me, and I can completely detach from this and just enjoy the benefit of them thinking that I am capable. That's probably what I would imagine more of a TE person would think. Where TI probably would be biting its tongue, not wanting any sort of lie to, even if it was inappropriate, they would want to have this urge to correct and refine. And also with more extroverted feeling, they are thinking about the societal implications of all of that, and also very kind of blunt about it. Seems like this person was kind of starting shit. And just to be real, we're living in a time in America where Black Lives Matter is a conversation. There are protests going on, and this is a perfect example, honestly, of, I'm not trying to assume this person's race, but it is an example of generational privilege. I don't know where this person's from or their race, but I do know that their grandparents and aunts had enough money to have a fund. And that's not the case for most minorities. Well, not most Black people, to be real, in America. The model minority, Asians in America, is a little bit different. But you guys can look that up if you choose. But I mean, this is a real thing, and this is a real truth that is affecting a lot of people. And so I see this as a very SE and TI thing to want to raise it as an opinion. It might have been sort of the wrong time, or maybe the way he said it, he didn't really read the room. But honestly, too, the fact that he said people dying at a convenient time, if he wouldn't have said it like that, I can totally see this also being an issue, where if this is an SE user, he's just being straightforward. Oh, it's people dying, and he's saying it for the shock value, so that the NI realization sinks in. That, hey, it actually has nothing to do with me. It was actually people dying. I've noticed that SI users have weird sensitivities to that I honestly don't understand. So, if you're an SI user, comment below, let me know what you think. But I feel like SI is more oh, well, you should have said passed away. Or you should have said it in a different way. And it's because the sensory experience for an SI user is a lot more intense, where SE might just feel like they're kind of just skirting past what's going on. And so they aren't as personally, subjectively affected by the boldness of what is being said. So also, it probably gives this guy a lot of imposter syndrome, that people are or maybe he felt pressure, that people were putting pressure on him to succeed. And it seems like he feels honestly uncomfortable in general because he doesn't know how to receive what it is that he has. So yeah, I actually kind of think that his boss or whoever was kind of an asshole for being shocked and irritated by that. So I'm going to do one more of these. So, am I the asshole for proposing to my girlfriend in a way that she didn't like? I, a 34-year-old male, have been seeing my girlfriend, 28-year-old female, for 4 years. We've talked about marriage and kids in passing. It's always been something we're both open to, but we're both quite career-minded, and that's been our focus. She and her brother both often joke and complain about the pressure that they feel from their parents to get married. He has been in a relationship longer than we have and is still not engaged. I've seen as well how it's something that their parents drop very unsubtle hints about all the time. I don't think that they mean it to feel like pressure. They just want their kids to be happy and they want to be grandparents. Anyway, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I've reached that point in my life where marriage is increasingly appealing. I'm ready to make that commitment, and I know that she's the one for me. Her parents hosted a dinner party to celebrate us all being able to finally visit each other's houses again. It was me, my girlfriend, her brother, his girlfriend, and our 3 sets of parents. It seemed perfect to me. So after dessert, I got down on one knee and proposed. She looked pretty stunned and said, I guess. And everyone laughed. Oh my God. I'm sorry, I'm already siding with this girl. Comment below and tell me who you are siding with, or like how you would react in that situation. But all of the parents started celebrating. Her mother was crying. Her father was opening champagne, and we were all hugging. We went home later. I told her how happy I was to spend the rest of my life with her. She started crying and said that she felt like she had no choice. It upset me because it was hardly the enthusiasm I'd hoped for, and I asked her if she still loved me. She said she did, and maybe she did want to get married, but the way I proposed made it feel like her answer was a foregone conclusion, and she didn't have time to think about it, and even now, she knows that if she were to change her mind, she'd be letting everyone down and disappointing her parents. She said that she wished I'd propose privately so that they could talk together about what it really means and about what their future looks like, so that she could be really 100% sure of her decision before announcing it to her family. She feels like I removed her opportunity to prepare for her parents' reaction, to make sure she was saying yes because she wanted to and not instead of her expectation. She says that she's less sure than ever about our relationship because the proposal shows how little I know her or what she wants. I thought I was being romantic, even if it wasn't her ideal proposal. I don't see why that should affect her answer. A relationship is about more than just one evening. I'm already going to say that I feel like this girl is using FE, and I will explain. And I feel bad because I would feel that way in the same situation, and I am going to guess, I don't know what the type of the guy is. I feel like either a TP or an FP. It seems like some sort of P that like just did something in the moment. Either the SE or NE felt right, and they just like jumped at it based on their feeling, and then they didn't really think about how it would land in like the extroverted judging. And then this poor girl, I feel like she's got to be FE because one, she's thinking, don't you know that I feel pressure from my parents? And isn't it obvious that doing it in front of my parents would be like the literal bottom of the list? That's what I would feel. And also the way that she's like, well, I don't know how I really feel because of the people that were involved. And I don't know if he's an FI user or not, but I would imagine an FI user would be thinking like, well, don't you just know what you feel? Like, why does it matter, like, if you were next to your parents or not? And more of the FE perspective is like, well, of course I don't know how I really feel if you're bringing in all of the fear of disappointing my parents whenever I should be feeling how I feel about you at this time. So I think that she is totally correct to be having doubts about the fact that about the fact that, oh, wow, this is kind of just showing how much he doesn't really know me in a way. But at the same time, I feel like he did not mean to do anything wrong, and that she also should have known. It's also kind of her responsibility in a way, even if she doesn't know, to communicate like what her expectations are about marriage. I mean, if it's come up a lot, and like he knows that she feels pressure from her parents, then like she could have said like, hey, like I really want to be proposed to in this, but like maybe she didn't say that because she wasn't ready, and so that was kind of like his bad for not knowing that she clearly wasn't ready, because they would have talked about it. This is something that makes me happy that I'm in a lesbian relationship, because I was always so afraid of the whole idea of like a guy like spurring something on me like that. I've never liked that idea, and I'm like now like thinking that I want to be the person to propose, because I like want the control. But I've also like talked to my girlfriend about that like several times, about like what we both expect. And I like honestly can't imagine being in a situation where like I wouldn't know like what my partner, especially of that long, not knowing what they would want or what the expectations are. I mean, because I've been dating my partner for 2 years. They've been dating for 4 years, and they haven't talked about what their expectations are about marriage and about proposals. And so part of that is she could have been more open about what she wanted. But also, he could have asked, and he also could have read the room a little bit more if maybe she wasn't ready. And that's where, like, for her, it's like she might be thinking, oh, he should have read my emotions, where that's where if she is an FE user, I would say to her, yes, but you should be clear. And it's up to her as the FE user if she values someone who just gets her emotions, or if she is willing to grow to learn how to communicate them in a way that is clear for her partner to understand and like share like her exact boundaries and all that. So yeah, I don't think that he is an asshole. I think that he's awkward. And I think that he messed up. And also, like, I don't find that romantic. In fact, I just feel kind of sorry for the guy. But, well, it's been an hour. And I'm going to see if there's any, there's one question here. If anyone has any last questions, feel free to share. Insidious Apple says, I'm an ISTP female. How do I stop being a smartass? Is there anything wrong with that? Do you have to stop? But for real, I would say it's okay to be opinionated. But your problem probably is that you haven't really found a place to belong. And I know that you might not connect those two things. But the more you feel like you belong, and the more you feel like you're surrounded by people that you respect, then the less of an urge you're going to have to either want to judge them or correct them, or feel frustrated by the fact that nothing makes sense. Because if you're in a place that you don't like, if the FE vibe surrounding you doesn't really fit you, then you're going to feel like you're surrounded by idiots constantly. And so part of that is about using FE to establish bonds with the people that do get you, so that if you are around that more, then it'll probably make you a little bit more easygoing. Yeah. So thank you guys for hanging with me. I offer typing services that are linked below. I also have about 5 slots left for one-on-one consulting if you wanted to just pick my brain about anything cognitive functions related, and also for one-on-one coaching that is all about personality integration looking at all of your 8 functions and then integrating your shadow and your ego and walking down the path of your individuation together. That's linked below as well. And my last announcement is that on August 22nd, I'm hosting a discussion group where we're going to be talking all about responsibility and cognitive functions. So it is $12 a month to join my monthly membership group where there's a discussion group. Daft Punk. I've got my robot head behind me. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I'm doing a monthly discussion group that is $12 a month if you want to join. That is linked below, and it is a group of people kind of just discussing their cognitive functions. We're talking about responsibility and what that means to you, and we're going to be kind of over analyzing or like picking out theories based on what we see, and I'll be facilitating that discussion. Thank you guys for sticking with me with this stream, and thank you for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day or night, I suppose.